Hi there, I printed some more stuff. Let's talk about that. For some reason, one of my recent videos about 3D printing suddenly got a lot of views, and a lot of people are watching it. So if that's what you want, I'll do another one. In this case, I got together some things that I've been printing, which I think are useful, but useful in a certain way, but also useful because I learned something from them. So we're going to go over those right here. There's only a few of them, and then at the end I think I'll talk about where I'm going with 3D printing from here. So here's the stuff. We're going to go down the row. Some of this is going to be repeats if you're really into 3D printing, but it was useful for me to learn. This, first off, what this is, it's got a little hex thing. You put a screwdriver bit in. So you're supposed to be able to, get decent leverage on it, and it's also pretty low profile to get into tight spaces. Some of you may know, my day job, I'm a repairman, appliance repairman, so these kind of little nifty tools to reach into places are pretty handy. Recently, I did it on the last video anyway, I did this one. This is similar, you can put a screwdriver bit in there, and I have another one that's smaller, and I leave these in my jacket pocket. There's a big difference between these two. I'm not talking about the handle part. Look at the top. See, this is flat. This is a little column sticking out. This is a problem because the layers go this way. So it's more prone to break this way. By the way, all this is in PLA. So just form a reference here. So this, very little layers for these top pieces, and that can cause an issue when you have a screwdriver bit. These are two Phillips bits. One's short, one's long. We usually use these stuck into bit holders, stuck into an electric drill. But this, go into here. This will work. But the problem is with this whole thing is in the loose section. So if you really crank, you'll break it right off because the layers make it weak. And if you use one of these bits, which again, we don't have many of these long ones in the toolbox because we don't use this style, that kind of solves the problem. But still, it's only a little bit. And there's a little bit here that can get kind of torqued when you're like really reaching in to get something. So it'll break it off. This isn't the first one that I've printed like this in an attempt to make them work, but it is the most unbroken one. So I've kind of learned through this, although yes, it's a tool and you can kind of do screwdriver things with it. I've learned through this that the layers matter. You have to pay attention to the grain and kind of the design matters, and don't just trust that when you get something on a website, it'll work for its intended purpose. So alternatively, you can probably modify the tool to be a little more like this on the top, where you get this large area. But I just kind of printed these kind of off of files from my mini factory. I'll put the link to all these in the description below. But moving on, this is a little dustpan. I printed this one. I found it on my mini factory again, and I printed it because this is my old dustpan. Looks kind of nasty, and when the edges break off, you sweep the dust in, it just falls off. So this is going in the garbage. This has nice long sides. It's narrow so you can fit it into things. I can use my little hand brush. Couple problems. This has a thickness, and that's the same thickness under here. So when I would hold it down on the workbench and sweep up, it would get jammed up along that ridge. So I cut out a piece of sheet metal, bent it over, so now when I hold it like this, there's a thin sheet metal ridge that's semi-sharpened, and I can sweep things right up into this little thing. I attached it just with hot glue. I like to think of hot glue as brazing, but for plastic. So you can braze hot glue, metal to plastic, plastic to other plastic. You can also weld plastic using plastic filler rod and something like a soldering iron. I've seen that done, but that's more pro level junk. I'm just a noob. I just use hot glue that I totally didn't steal from my wife's craft desk. I did. So that's important. Pay attention to that kind of thing when you're trying to print something useful. Also, don't just consider a 3D printed object as complete, especially for tools. 3D printing is a very useful tool, but you don't buy a car that's only made out of steel, right? Like the seats are made out of leather, someone upholstered them. That's the right tool for that job. There are different materials. You don't make the windows out of steel. The windows are glass because you can see through them better. You can use different materials for different parts and combine them and make a 3D printed thing more useful, because the 3D printed thing is really, the 3D printer is just a tool. And the 3D printed object, although cool looking things like this might be kind of neat, He's judging me from behind that flask. But I really got bored of just printing a thing and setting it on my desk. Also, mini side thing that I've learned, little plastic things, especially bright plastic things, sitting on your desk when you have children, they tend to disappear while you're at work. So don't leave them on your desk, because kids are going to think they're toys. And even things like this, I mean, this is clearly just a toy type thing, but it disappeared. It just vanished, and then I found it. I found it because it has sharp edges, and I found it with my foot. So be wary of that. Also, speaking of the tiny Rick, take a look at his hair. See, some of the layers look smaller? Well, it's not that the layers are shifted, it's that some are smaller than others. I think it's inconsistency of the diameter of the filament. So that's giving me these crappy looking lines. And I had a whole bunch of those problems with this color, none with that color. These are both Hatchbox PLA. So there's a lot of variation. Sometimes you get a good roll, sometimes you don't. I learned that because of this roll, it wasn't very good. Another thing I learned, PLA, people say PLA is brittle. Well, this is a very thin handle, and I thought it would be a problem, but it's not. It hasn't been a problem. It's not breaking. It's perfectly resilient. I thought I was going to have to do one of these kind of deals to reinforce it. Nope. Nope, not at all. It's totally fine. So it is stronger than you think. Except in this case. There is a limit, I suppose. Next, this. This I printed from PLA. This was part of a kit thing. And this is a guide that tells you if another thing you can print works. So it's supposed to tell you, say you got this can, this PB Blaster, good old rust penetrating oil, and there's a tool that I 3D printed that will snap onto here and give you like a trigger. So when you pull the trigger, it'll give you a handle, like a spray gun. Pull the trigger, it'll push down on this and spray. And it'll be like a spray gun with a can on it. Cool, right? I was thinking I would use that with spray paint and use it to paint the Jeep. So I'd have cans, but it'd feel like a spray gun. Neat, huh? But the reason I'm showing you the guide and not the actual tool is because here's the tool. Right here. So I bet you're already figuring out what I learned from this experience. Don't leave your printer unattended for too long without checking. Of course, I was asleep while this happened. And just because it printed up this far doesn't mean you're in the clear. I usually think if I see the first few layers adhere pretty well, I just leave. It's no problem. Especially with PLA, right? Well, wrong. And I was going to print another one for this, but like, that's a lot of wasted plastic, and there's a lot of emotional trauma and sadness and tears every time I think about making another one. I'll probably make another one. This is a Hinge, quite obviously. They print in single parts, they're identical, they print like this, and then you just take them out, remove the support material, and stick them together, and then you got to put a rod and countersunk screws and everything. I was printing these to maybe use on the Jeep. The Jeep project is a sheet metal project I've been doing. I took a Power Wheels Jeep, cut the body off, and I made a body out of steel. It's like a metal fabrication, welding practice kind of thing. And I decided not to use these hinges. I will show you why. So yeah, spoiler alert and all that. It's a bit flash rusty, but in my defense, it works, and my daughter's been playing with it, and I haven't been able to paint it. I was thinking of using these kind of hinges underneath here, secure this end of the hood, this end of the body. And I was thinking that before I printed it and saw that it looks terrible. And then, you can open the hood and all that. And wouldn't that be great? The hinge works. The hinge is fine. There's nothing wrong with the print. I just think it looks like garbage, so I'm not going to use it. Anyway, point there. The great thing about 3D printing is you can make the part, try it, think it's garbage, and say, screw you, and do something else. And you don't have to like cry about blowing money on some hinges or even bother to try to make it work, because who cares? It was cheap. This wasn't so cheap. This kind of crushed my feelings a little bit, but it's part of life. This brings me to where we're going from here. You've seen me use it in the past with this. This is my split pattern, which I designed and made to use for casting the aluminum bronze hammer. Here it is. See, this is cast in aluminum bronze. There's a video on this. This and this I explained this in the previous video. That's kind of where I was, along with this nifty dagger, which I cast this in aluminum bronze. That's in the basement. That's in the basement right now, and I'm not going to go get it. But I'm going to keep doing this 3D printing. I'm also going to keep trying out different things to use, especially for the Jeep project. I did the headlights and stuff. You'll see that when the Jeep video comes out. I'm not going to stick them on until after I paint it, obviously. But also, I'm going to try to do more kind of small plastic trim bits for the van project. A lot of little things like this. I don't do 3D printing so much to make a thing that just sits there. I want parts because I need plastic parts. So I'm using it kind of as a tool, not as like a thing to focus on. On a related note, these and the bead roller thing, the handle that I stuck on the bead roller. Hang on, I'll go get it. Oh man, this thing is heavy. This thing weighs like 50 pounds. This thing that I printed, these are original designs, things that I modeled. I will put these on my mini factory, and I will put a link in the description where you can actually print these. I'm also using it, yes, to add on to a tool, but I already talked about this before. These will be uploaded to my mini factory, link in the description below. I'm going to stop moving this or I'm going to break my spine again. This was short, but I hope you found that informative, and I hope you give some of these a try. And if you happen to be watching this video into 3D printing and you have an Eastwood or Harbor Freight or Woodward Fab bead roller, check out that handle. That's probably like one guy out there. Hi, one guy! Anyways, I will see you later, perhaps. Leave me a comment if you want to say something. Please not hurtful. My feelings are already scarred enough.